All right. Hello, everybody. It's Electroman here, or Gent. It's definitely way easier than Electroman. But yeah, I'm here recording a video, and actually, this is going to be the start of a longer series of videos that I want to be working on throughout the next few weeks and months. But before I kind of get into that, I just wanted to first apologize. My mic is not the best. I know the last video I made was the shield drop video, like discussion or whatever, and people seem to like it a lot in terms of it being helpful. But of course, the mic is not great, and I'm currently using my phone, and also, the space that I'm using is not amazing either. There might be a slight echo, but this is kind of the best I can do right now. So if you don't if you don't enjoy it, then you don't have to watch, I guess. But this is what I can do right now, and I'm hoping that the material that we talk about in the videos themselves will be better than perhaps the mic quality, and that it'll kind of balance itself out. But anyway. Without further ado, let's kind of get into what exactly am I doing here? Why am I here today? Well, so this is going to be a new series of videos that I'm going to be working on in the next few weeks and months, relating to mentality and competing and improving, and it's really going to be all about mentality. And this is the first of a bunch of videos, so I guess this video is going to be where I'm going to be spending a little minute or two here explaining kind of the structure and the way these videos are going to work. I'm not going to do this for every single video, but I thought it would make sense to do it for the first one. So anyway, why am I making these videos? Well, first, if you don't know, well, I guess I'll start by giving a brief introduction on who I am. Because you might be listening and you have no idea who I am, and that you would be like, well, who the hell is this guy, and why should I listen to him, right? So I'll give a little brief introduction. My tag's Electroman. My name's Gent. Gent is just way easier, or E-Man, but honestly I prefer my first name at this point. I'm from Massachusetts, and I've been playing Melee for, at this point, a little over 8.5 years, if you can believe it. My first tournament was January 2016, but at this point, I think I've been playing the game since like late 2015, probably late 2015. But anyway, I am a Fox player, and in Melee, of course, love Fox. And I am currently ranked in Massachusetts and in New England. And those aren't really that important. But I just thought I'd give a brief introduction on who I am before I kind of get into all the nitty-gritty of what I want to talk about. And so if you already know me, you just skip all this stuff. I guess I'll probably just put maybe like a timestamp, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And then I guess why I'm talking about mentality. First of all, I think that my improvement in the game of Melee in the last 2 or 3 years, I have always said, I think has been because of mentality. Obviously, my gameplay has improved, no doubt, right? Spent a lot of time on analysis and stuff like that. But I think mentality has been at the root of my improvement. It wasn't always like this. Back in 2020 and even prior to that, my mentality was not great, and I would definitely get frustrated a lot. And I spent a lot of time on my mentality and certain things to improve on it, and certain, trying to understand certain concepts and trying to get in tune with myself as a person, as a competitor. And I would say that has been the crux of my improvement for the past few years. And I want to spend some time talking about it because this is not the first time I've talked about mentality. I got into conversations about mentality with so many people at this point, whether it's people who I'm, trying to help improve at because they're newer players, or even players that are, significantly better than me that I've had discussions with. I think I have I guess decently good grasp on mentality. I will say I'm not perfect, and I am improving all the time in my own mentality as well. But I think compared to a lot of other competitors, I've spent a lot of time on it, and I know it's a big problem in the Melee community and in Smash in general about mentality, that I just want to be able to spend, I guess, some video time, in this YouTube series talking about a lot of these concepts, because I feel like I keep repeating myself a lot and I might forget certain things when I'm just talking, rambling and stuff like that. So I'd rather just create YouTube videos with, a little bit of structure that I can just kind of share around to people as like an easy way to listen. Plus, I don't think a lot of people are talking about a lot of the different concepts. I'm sure Drug Fox has some videos, and I'm sure like Fiction and KJH I'm sure have videos. In fact, KJH's most recent videos on his YouTube channel have motivated me to, start this series up. But I feel as though there's a lot of concepts that are not talked about a lot, and I want to spend some time on my understanding of them, and maybe I can shed some light on them for other people. Now, from there, I want to give a brief disclaimer, okay? The things that I talk about in this video and in videos after this, may not apply to you. I mean, they might not work for you, and they might not even be beneficial for you, okay? Or whatever the case may be. But that is fully your, I guess, burden, or I don't want to say burden, that maybe is the wrong word, but like, it's your choice on whether you want to listen to me or not, essentially. And it might work for you, and it might not. And honestly, you can take what I'm saying as more of a base understanding, and maybe you can kind of shift it around in your own brain and how mold it to the way that you understand the game. But in no way am I like speaking the gospel or anything like that. Like, this is just what has worked for me, and I want to be able to shed some light on it. And I'm probably going to give that disclaimer at the start of every one of my videos, because I think it's really important for people to understand that, like, when people give you advice, it's not going to go one-to-one, especially with mentality. And so I want people to know that, like, you can kind of just take what I'm saying and mold it to what works for you. Okay. So with all that out of the way, that, brief introduction that took 8 minutes, I'm a rambler, if you have not been able to tell. So I feel like each of these videos are going to be more like podcast videos, because I'm not going to cut most of it, if not any of it, to be honest with you, because that's just not how I roll. And I'm not a big, like, it takes too much time. And I actually think the rambling parts of stuff like this can be helpful sometimes too, because I think Melee videos sometimes some tutorials get so simplified, and I don't know, it's too simplified. I do think there's too much simplification sometimes, and maybe some of the rambling can allow it to seem like it's a little more real for some of you. That's more of a conversation. You know what I'm saying? So it might seem like more of a podcast, because I do like to talk. And but with all that being said, okay, let's get into the first topic for these videos, okay? So the first topic for today is going to be what I'm calling letting them have their moment, okay? So this topic for today is, I believe, at the crux of what it means to be a competitor and competing. And I wanted to start with it because I do think it's not talked about a lot. And again, I think it's so fundamental to competing and being a successful competitor, but two, a healthy competitor. And that's why I wanted to talk about it first amongst a lot of other topics that I could have talked about. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention is that these are not going to be fully structured. I have some points here that are going to make it easier for me to talk, but again, it is more of a conversation. I may ramble sometimes. It's more of like a podcast of sorts. So I have some points here, but it's not going to be like super cleanly edited or anything, right? So anyway, the first, I guess, major point on this discussion to talk about is what is competition in the first place, and what does it mean to compete? So I would say that competition is special, okay? And I think a lot of people don't really think about it like that. I feel like a lot of people that want to compete, they go into it with this just like very, I guess, black and white understanding of what's happening. Like you either go in and either you like come out a winner or come out a loser, right? And that, of course, is a big part of competing, of course. But there's a lot more to that I think doesn't get talked about. I think competing is very special. Competition is a very special part of, I think, the human experience, to be honest with you. And, well, you might be saying, well, what does that mean? Like, what makes it so special? And I think what makes it special is us, the people who decide to come in on whatever that day is, spend hours of our time sitting down next to one another on these chairs in front of a setup, playing a video game that's over 20 years old, and trying to beat each other at it. And I think that's what makes it special, is that we are the ones that are creating this very special, they are creating this special experience. And especially in competition, when two people sit down, they are essentially accepting this contract. I think the way that I would describe it is it's kind of like a contract where they go into this set for this amount of time, right, that they'll be in there for, and it's a contract. It's like okay, I am putting my time here, I have put my efforts in, my practice, and I am here to sign a contract with this other person, and we're gonna see who is gonna come out victorious, right? But because it's so special, I think I would say that it needs to be treated like that throughout the entirety of its duration, okay? And I think what's happening right now when it comes to competing is people don't do that. People don't treat competition as this special thing. Again, they see it as very black and white. They don't see it with all the other parts that come to, spending this time and this effort to trying to beat this other person, this other human, excuse me, and all this time that we've spent on perfecting our craft, right? And trying to come up with game plans and improve and adapt, right? All of these parts are what make competition special, and it's not so black and white. And I think what ends up hindering people in their mentality is that because they go into it with a very black and white mentality of, I either come out a winner or I come out a loser, and they don't understand all the work that each opponent has put in. I think they actually hurt themselves in the long run. I would say that you have to treat competition as this very special concept throughout the entirety of its duration, okay? And specifically, what does that mean for this topic, which is letting them have their moment? So who is them in this case? Well, specifically, this is for the person who wins. And specifically, this is in the case where you are the loser, okay? You lose this competition. You lose the set, okay? The opponent wins, and you've lost. Letting them have their moment is exactly what it sounds like. It's allowing your opponent to have that moment of victory for themselves. And I think people don't think about this a lot. When they lose, okay, obviously some people get rightfully disappointed. And I'm not saying you can't get disappointed, right? But I think a lot of people they don't appreciate what it means to beat the opponent. Not really, okay? It's a two-player game. It's a very competition is very special. There's a lot of time and effort that's put in by each player. It's a two-player game. It is not a single-player game, okay? You are not beating a time trial. You're not speed running, okay? It's a two-player game, and that other person on the other side of the setup is just as much of a human as you are. And their emotions and their feelings are connected to the game just as much as yours are. What does that mean? Well, that means that if they win, they deserve to feel like they won. They deserve to feel like they accomplished something. Because genuinely, that is what we play for, okay? When we compete, this very special concept that we've created, right? The whole reason why we created competition is for the feeling after the fact. Otherwise, we would just be playing casuals all day, or friendlies, or whatever the case may be. But even the whole point of a fighting game or a multiplayer game, whatever the case may be, the whole point of it is the is the feelings that we get after the fact. The feelings of all of the work that we put in at that point culminating into this victory, right? All of our emotions coming in, right? All of our effort, all of our adaptations, all of our feelings, everything culminates into the result of the match. And when an opponent, when somebody, an individual, a competitor, is not given the chance to feel these feelings and live them out, I think it's, and this might sound harsh and it might sound like too, grand, I think not allowing an individual to have their moment when they win is probably the greatest crime you can do in competition. Obviously, there's obviously legal crimes that are much, much worse, of course. But when it comes to competing, okay, and the value that we put on it, the work that we put in, this very special thing, I keep saying it, but it's true. I think the greatest crime you can do or commit is to not let the winner have their moment. And the same goes for yourself, right? If someone else doesn't let you have, I'm not talking about just you. I'm talking about everybody. Okay, everybody doesn't let the opponent, whether it's the opponent or you, have that moment of victory and really live it. Taking away from that moment is taking away from the entire essence of what competition is. Okay? And the reason why I connect this to mentality, right, is because I think this is what a good mentality starts from, is accepting that, one, the result is not always in your control, okay? The other player has full autonomy, right? Absolute full autonomy. And number two, you need to be able to hone in on what competition means, because that will set the pace for the rest of your mentality. Competition, allowing your opponent to have that moment, those feelings, the things that we value, letting them live it, letting them pop off, letting them be excited for beating you, and you not going in and complaining after, right, in their face. You can be disappointed, but complaining in their face, going to throwing your controller in front of their face or something, right? Or going to someone else in the room and complaining about them. Or just straight up just seeming like you want to take it away from them in some way, right? That is incredibly problematic. And it can really hurt the rest of your mentality, right? The reason why it hurts your mentality is because if you can't accept that this is a reality, then you don't really deserve it. You don't really deserve it, number one. And you can never really become one with what it means to compete, because you have to be okay with that reality. You have to be okay with the reality where you do not win, and that you have to allow them to keep that dub, that W. They deserve that work. Because that again that is what connects it to the rest of your mentality. The reason why you put in the time and the effort and the work, and the reason why we solo practice and analyze and ask for help and ask for tips and practice and everything else that comes with all of that. Wake up in the morning and play before we sleep, practice in sessions, all these things. All that work is for that result. But if you can't connect that result with this like autonomy that players have, that's a two-player game, and if you can't connect it with what the value of it means, of you going in that day and sitting down at that setup, and what you two are putting on the line, both you and your opponent are putting on the line, then you just should not be competing at all. Because at some point, it's going to become a chore. At some point, it's going to feel like a job. And at some point, it's not going to feel like it's a real competition. Like it's a real test of skills. And test of skills and a mutual respect. And for me, right, when I realized this, like let me give you an example, personal example for me. Okay. I have been upset plenty of times. If you're from New England and you've watched my runs, you know that I've been upset, you know, and I think that is for a number of different reasons. Personally, I think it's because New England is really, really good, okay? And a lot of people don't give us enough credit for our mid and mid-high level. But when I get upset in bracket, right, there's been times where I've been upset, and I've been disappointed, right? But when I realized this is the example I'll give is this is during like a net play bracket. I'm not going to mention any tags because I don't want to get to that point. But it was during the net play bracket and I got upset. This was like two years ago or something when I started working on this. And the person I beat, I remember we were like they like went into the server the server for the tournament. And in the channels, you know, people were giving them a lot of credit for winning, for beating me. And they were happy, right? They were excited because of all the work they had put in and all the practice. And I said nothing. I shut up. I shut up in that moment. I saw the happiness and I didn't do anything. Now, granted, it's much easier, I think, when you're not in a room to do this, like in a room with other smashers, and it's like a local. But what actually ended up happening, I think it's still valuable though. But what actually ended up happening is I told myself, you know what? This person beat me. They upset me. They deserve this moment right now for all the work that they've put in, because I know what it takes to put that work in, and they deserve this right now. They absolutely deserve it, and they deserve to live it up. But you know what? I'm going to beat them in losers. I'm going to win this shit from losers. I'm going to run it up. And I shut up, took a little break, came back to my setup, and I think I got upset like pretty early on in the bracket, and I made it to grand finals. And I don't know if I ended up winning the tournament. I'm pretty sure I ended up losing. But I ran through all of losers after losing to this person in this set. And I think I would not have been able to do that if, number one, I was still so upset. And two, if I didn't allow them to have their moment. The other thing about allowing them to have their moment, see, the big thing is it allows you to have some closure. And this is another concept that'll be for the future, which is going to be like watching your sets after you lose, which is a whole other discussion. But a big part, which is like I think a part of this closure thing, but a big part of closure in terms of competing is being like, I have moved on from that set and I'm going to keep going. But you can't move on with the set if if things are holding you back. If you're thinking thoughts like, well, they didn't deserve it, or if you were thinking thoughts of, well, I could have done this or I should have done that, or if you say certain things to the opponent like, well, I missed that combo, or man, if I just hit that grab, or whatever, maybe I should have taken you to a different stage. Like, you can never really start having closure with that set if you can't accept that they beat you and that they deserve that moment. They deserve to have that moment. That's what we compete for. It's what we compete for. It's what we practice for. It's why we sit down at the setup, why we get there in the first place and play and compete, is for the feelings after the fact, for that moment of all of our work finally culminating into this achievement in winning. Trust me, I know what it feels like to lose a heartbreaker. I have lost many in New England. Shout out Calvar. Shout out Calvar. Shout out Nage. Shout outs to Golden. Shout outs to Bank. Shout outs to Meep and all these other awesome players. Gwex, Dr. Lobster, Bonfire 10, all these awesome players. Awesome video games. Henry, my boy. I know what it feels like to lose heartbreakers. I know I have gotten second place in the last year so much in this region. I know what it means to lose a heartbreaker. I understand. But if you don't let your opponent have their moment, then what the hell are you competing for? What do you see competition as? It's not a speed run. It's not a time trial. It's not a practice session. It's not any of those things. It's a test of skills, of wit, it's a challenge. It's an art. It's a contract that both you and your opponent, it's an experience that both you and your opponent agree to undergo. And if you can't come to terms with your opponent being able to be happy about their win, then you don't deserve to compete and you don't deserve to win. So that's the first concept that I wanted to talk about at this point. I've gone on for about 28 minutes. But again, I think this concept is absolutely core to what it means to compete and mentality in general. And none of the other concepts that I'm going to talk about after the fact matter at all, or you cannot fully implement them if you can't accept this fundamental concept to mentality. So this is where it all starts, I would say. This is where so much of my improvement and competitiveness and everything changed when I accepted this reality and I started really living this concept. And when I say living this concept, it means in every fashion, okay? It means at your locals and your regionals and your majors at all moments. It means holding yourself accountable when you don't do so. It means all of those things. It means even to the small stuff. Even stuff like, mid-set being super emotional and obviously you can be emotional, that's one thing, but like to the point where it becomes like it affects the opponent in such a way that they feel like they can't win without this shadow, and that's probably a different topic, to be honest with you. But just think about these things. You have to stay consistent. You have to hold yourself responsible. And you got to care and you got to really live it. You have to live it, okay? This is the human experience, okay? It really just comes down to that. Like, this is what we all do. We're all humans, okay? You're not special. I'm sorry, you're not, okay? You might see yourself as the protagonist, and maybe in some ways we're all our own protagonists. But you're not any more special than the next person. You're not. I'm sorry. And so, you are not more special than the other person sitting across from you at that setup. They deserve those feelings just as much as you do. So you need to let them have their moment. But with that being said, I'm gonna wrap up for today. I appreciate y'all listening. If you listened through all this way, I know I'm a big rambler. I do like to talk. This is just how these videos are gonna be. If you have topics that you want me to talk about in the future, I already have a list of things that I think are the most important when it comes to mentality. But I do, want to be able to talk about certain things people really care about, and maybe I have some things to talk about after I get through all the stuff that I think is really important to mentality. Because this is mostly like a blog, like my own little blog, I think. And then in terms of what's going to be in the background, I think I'm going to test that. I think for today you might have been seeing some just practice that I've been doing, just practice for today with no audio from the practice. That I think is the what I'm going to be starting with, but I don't want to just have a single picture or something. That seems kind of lame. So maybe you can watch, Fox doing some tech skill, and I hope you've enjoyed that. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from this, and I hope that you enjoy this journey of improving your mentality that we will both be going through. But with that being said, excuse me again, thank you for watching, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.